Thank you, Mr. President. I would like, on behalf of IITA and IITA community, to thank you and thank your panel for choosing IITA. This award comes at a very good moment when we have just finished celebrating our 50 years anniversary. So it looks like you've given us a present for the 50 years of history. So I'm going to make my remark on 3 points. A little bit about history. It's a kind of achievement, and I'll try to make it as simple as so the journalist who asks a question about the importance of research, you can understand, and especially if you come from Rwanda. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what is beyond research, and especially what we are looking for in the next coming probably 20 years. So last year, in July 24, we celebrated our birthday, and we have a privilege of having two former presidents of Nigeria, President Gowon and President Obasanjo. They have a long history, not only with Nigeria, but with IITA. President Gowon, when he was only 30 years, in 67, head of state, in the middle of the Biafra War, on 24th of July 67, signed a decree establishing IITA as an institution of agricultural research in Nigeria. Last year, I asked him a question. In a war which was a very severe war, how could you really think about just signing a decree for agricultural research instead of, well, be busy pacifying the country? And it was really quite interesting because it was 50 years later, and it was at that campus, which has grown, established in 18 countries here in Africa. I think he was so happy to see what he did when he was a young person, 30 years old, now 88 years old, seeing some of the achievements of the institution. I'll talk about it. President Obasanjo, during that period, he was a general under President Gowon. And he's the one who basically signed the peace with Biafra, accepted the surrender of Biafra. And he was there. There were the two there living with us. When he became president, civil president in 1990, one of the first things he did on this continent was to initiate the first presidential initiative on cassava. In 1999, Nigeria, cassava was used only for food. It's considered as a poor man's crop. Nobody paid attention to it. Even we scientists at IITA were not paying too much attention to it because we wanted to work on maize, on soybean, and so on. But because of that presidential initiative, 4 years later, Nigeria became the first producer of cassava in the world, but still used only for food, while in Thailand and Brazil, cassava was being exported. And in Brazil, you had for almost 13 products of real cassava being used in industry and so on. But what happened with that decision he has taken, we started taking a different dimension of cassava. And the most important one was the research done at IITA of trying to process cassava and introduce it in wheat bread. That research took us 15 years of trying. And as a result, today in Nigeria, when I eat cassava in Nigeria, I eat bread in Nigeria, you're eating 20% cassava in it. It's being exported to Congo and Tanzania. Here's an example of research, and I remember every time when I visit President Obasanjo, he would ask me every time, what is new at IITA? The first time I told him, cassava bread. Second term, what is new? And I said, Mr. President, now you can eat yellow cassava. The yellow cassava, what is yellow cassava? This is yellow cassava with vitamin A. And in Nigeria, basically when you eat gari, you put palm oil in it because there is a color of yellow. And basically it's a source of vitamin A. But we were able to breed that type of cassava, so you don't need basically to buy palm oil. This is just an example of cassava. So this is a legislation in Nigeria where basically 10 or 20% of cassava have to be introduced in bread. And you're saving almost $500 million, which is being used for creating jobs in Nigeria. It's being used for starch now, ethanol, and you see a lot of factories growing in Nigeria, and people start making money from it, even the farmers. The journalists asked a question about what else IITA will do as research and the value of research. So we are here in Rwanda and DRC. I'm from DRC. We use all parts of cassava. More importantly, cassava leaves. Here in Rwanda, in DRC, I think we survive because of cassava leaves. That's the source of protein we have and so on. 4 years ago, the Minister of Agriculture here called me and she said cassava is disappearing in Uganda and especially in Rwanda. Cassava was going to disappear 4 years ago, because of cassava mosaic disease. We need to find a solution, because if it disappears, in terms of food security, you cannot do anything in Congo. Or just to cut the story short, the research we've done just in the past 3 years, we've been able to introduce varieties which are resistant to that cassava virus mosaic diseases, which was going to exterminate. It was going completely out of Rwanda. That's an example of the type of research we are doing here, and I'm just exemplifying that with cassava. I'll give another example before I move to the future. President Kenyatta, in 2015, called me, and he said, I have a problem in one of my regions, Ukambani. Every year, I'm losing 200 people dying because of poison. They don't know how to identify it. The poison, every year, was aflatoxin. They've been consuming maize and groundnut contaminated by aflatoxin. And he heard that at IITA, we have the cure against aflatoxin. Yes, we did research and were able to eliminate that aflatoxin from basically 100% to almost insignificant level in maize. So they are able now to trade and reduce the mortality of the people. So we can go on talking about the result of research that are so numerous, but I would like to look into the future and look what is beyond the research we are doing. We see two things in the future, and if we don't resolve this, I'm afraid that we're going to be in a major problem here in agriculture in Africa. So the young people, talking with them, every time they invented a slogan which is called 3P in Nigeria. The 3P, they call it agriculture associated with pain, penury, and poverty. And they say, what do we want to do that? Why should I be interested in that? And they're right, certainly. And what we have tried to do at IITA for the moment is to create a group of young farmers who basically will change their mindset and consider agriculture as a business, and using a strategy simply of have innovative technologies and making sure they understand the type of business that can go on. and make sure that it can gain money and have the mindset that will be changing. This program, we started it 4 years ago, and we are seeing some results that being copied by a lot of institutions. I can talk more about that. So I believe that research, investing in research is not wasting time. The investment for AFLASAFE or biocontrol, it's $1 and you have return almost $200 if you think about cassava. So I believe that we will continue with support, advocating for research and building the capacity of these young people who believe the future of tomorrow.
Stand up for the champions, stand up.